We are happy to be joined by Dr Starzl now.
Hey Joy, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing really well, thanks. So we're so excited to have Joy joining us. She is not only a great advocate for organ donation in her own right, but she's also the wife of the late great Dr. Thomas Starzl, the father of modern transplantation from here in Pittsburgh. I had the good fortune of meeting Joy a few years ago while doing events with CORE, and she's just such a pleasure to work with, and she's always so willing to help. So when I reached out and asked her if she'd be a part of my anniversary series, she was quick to jump at the opportunity. So we're very happy to have you on the phone call. And so one of the first things, you always speak about this a lot, and I think it's so powerful to hear it from you from a first person perspective. Can you just tell us a little bit about, those early days of transplantation, being by Dr. Starzl's side and helping him also along the way?
Sure. The early days, oh gosh, they were so long ago. But for me and Tom, the early days actually started in Colorado, where we met, and eventually moved to Pittsburgh. And we moved to Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh allowed Tom to do the things that he wanted to do to continue with the research. In Denver, they kind of put a ceiling on it, and he just couldn't go any further with transplantation and research. So coming to Pittsburgh was a dream for him, not for me, because I had a choice to go to Pittsburgh or California. You know what I chose. But anyway, I'm so glad to be here. So when we got here, Tom pretty much came in smoking. I'm thinking, okay, we're moving to Pittsburgh. Even though he was really busy in Denver, I had no idea that it would take off. What he was doing would take off like it did. And he was so excited during those days and so concerned about what was happening to me as far as not knowing people, not being familiar with Pittsburgh. And so because of that, I was able to go on some of the procurements with him, which was exciting, but to some point it was exciting. Others, it wasn't. I think the hardest part I had was when he would go do organ procurement from children. That was a tough one. And it wasn't so tough about the child, but it was usually their deaths were so tragic. So that part was hard, but it was okay sitting in the room with the family members, talking about it and consoling them and sharing with them what they were going through. And this was early on. So there were so many opportunities to share with the patients, because on Saturdays we would go to the hospital and Tom would pack in his little pocket, his orange jacket, it had a little pocket, our dog. And we would go through Children's Hospital to the transplant unit and visit the kids. And Tom would always open his coat and show it to the kids, show Bebo to the kids. He said, "You want a cup of feel?" And then he would tell them it's going to cost him a nickel, but he would pay for it. So those days, I was able to meet many of the children and their families, and developing a relationship with them, in the sense that I tried to keep up with Tom. Tom remembered every patient's name, every recipient's name, every donor's name, and the families. I couldn't do that, so I have to ask their names. But anyway, some of them just really left a place in my heart that it was just warmed my heart, in my a special place is what I'm saying, in my heart. So I was so even today I'm able to visit with some patients via telephone. And when I went to Colorado, I was able to visit with patients there. The Transplant Olympics allowed me to see patients that I hadn't seen. It allowed me to see patients that were individuals that were patients of Tom's. And it was so warming to hear the stories of their transplants and how they're doing. That Transplant Olympic venue was awesome. It was awesome. It was awesome in so many ways. in that I could see the recipients, the family donors. I spent time with donor families, and with living donors. So it was just, and to see Tom's work, just kind of, he was very transparent in his work. So I'm not surprised to see how far the transplantation has come along. But seeing those patients there and meeting new friends, and I met a lot of people there that I'm still in contact with. So go Transplant Olympics.
One of my favorite parts of your story that you didn't actually touch on, so I'll bring it up just because I think it's so funny, is you always tell people that you swept Dr. Starzl off his feet when you first met him.
Child, yes, and I'm not going to forget that.
Why don't you tell everybody how you swept him off his feet?
I knocked him off his feet. People said, how did you guys meet? And I said, knocked him right off his feet. And they said, well, you're kidding me. And I said, yes. Tom was an avid bicycler. So he was riding his bike in Colorado to the hospital, and he was crossing the emergency driveway. And I was coming up the emergency driveway to go park my car, but the road was a tad icy. And here comes this man crossing the street, and I try to stop, and I can't, and I hit the back of his bike, and he fell off. So yes, I knocked him off of his feet, right off his feet. But I think that was definitely God's doing. I really do.
It was fate.
Absolutely.
You think he faked it? Because then a couple of days later, he came up. I said, are you okay? Are you okay? He said, yes. A couple of days later, he came up to the lab, and he looked at me, and he had this way of like, aren't you the one that hit me the other day? And I'm just like, I wanted to lie. I did.
Well, good thing you didn't. Good thing you didn't.
I did. So we started, he said, well, let's go to lunch. And so I had lunch, and that's when we just became he's someone to talk to. When I met Tom, he told me he was an orderly. I believed he was an orderly for several months. I had no idea until someone in the lab corrected me. And I was, so yeah, Tom was an orderly when I first met him. Even though he was professor of surgery, I didn't know. I was just driving.
I think that's I never had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Starzl, but the fact that you were able to think that he was an orderly for several months, I think that's just a testament to Dr. Starzl's personality, and he wasn't on a high horse, that's for sure.
That's right. He was not. And I had, like I said, I had no idea. He was kind. He was generous. Kind in that he cared about people. He cared about the patients, but even kind in my arena, in that if I wanted, he wanted to go to lunch, right? And I would go, and we would stay too long. And I'm like, Tommy, I have to get back to work. And we were, of course, let me tell you where we ate. We ate at the VA. That was my lunch date with Tom every day for several months. And my favorite, Tom would get a healthy meal, and I would always get mashed potatoes with gravy. I'll never forget that.
That's a good choice.
So he told me I was a good date. But I think when when we really connected, Tom was talking about his mother. He said that he had a dream about his mom. And I asked him, I said, well, what did she say? And he told me a few years later that one question, he just fell in love with me when I asked him that. He said no one really asked him that question. So he had some stories to tell about his mom and dad. But anyway, that's how we met. The early days for me coming to Pittsburgh were a little challenging because I didn't know anyone. And Tom he would ask some of the nurses to give me a call to see if I would like to go with them and hang out. And I wasn't quite doing that. But anyway, he was so concerned. He was very concerned about that. I came with a dog, Smokey, and Smokey got pregnant somehow, and somehow we went to visit some people, some friends, and they had a dog, and we didn't know Smokey and the dog got together. So anyway, Smokey got pregnant and gave birth. But then Tom said, well, we needed to have Smokey spaded. And so he took him to the hospital, to the laboratory, but Tom didn't spade her. Someone else spaded her, and they gave her too much anesthesia, so we lost her. And Tom, I think everyone at the hospital, people will tell you to this day that he stopped everything, and he went made people look for a little poodle. They were all looking for this little poodle because we lost Smokey, and they said he was just on everybody. You have to find this poodle. My wife needs this poodle. They killed him. So that was one thing, that coming to Pittsburgh and just having the dog and Tommy, that was all I had. So yeah, I have lots of stories to tell.
I bet.
But for me, they were so
So
exciting.
many relationships with patients over the years, like you said. What's that meant for you you've been able to witness this gratitude? I mean, obviously, I know firsthand as a transplant patient how thankful I am for my donor and for the doctors and scientists who have made it possible. What's it been like for you to be able to kind of witness that gratitude from so many patients over the years?
I don't know why. I have tears of gratitude when I think about that. The reason being is that I know Tom worked hard, but I didn't realize how hard he was working. And so today, when I see these grown, people who were children and they're having families, when I see patients who have been benefited from the medication the drug that he invented, I just get really overwhelmed, and it makes all those lonely nights and times that I spent alone, just that much more special. That I was able to, in some sense, be a part of it. My big role in that was what Tom would ask me to pray for some of the patients. When he'd come home, he would just be, he had his bloody shoes on, and I'm just like, if you don't take those bloody shoes at the door. But anyway, he would have his bloody tennis shoes on and just look downright devastated and would say, do you think you can put a prayer in for so-and-so? And he would walk up the steps. I could see him now walking up the steps, just kind of, it's got to work, like he tried his best. And so there were several times he asked me to pray for the patients and their families, and I did. And oftentimes he was okay. They were okay. Not that I had anything, but I think it settled his mind in some way, knowing that there's another force out there. That's what I believe.
Well, we sadly lost Dr. Starzl in 2017, but you certainly did not stop being a part of the organ donation community at that point. If anything, you're just incredibly active within the community as an advocate these days. That's how I met you. I met you through CORE. We've connected on a number of other issues at Allegheny General Hospital, my transplant hospital, and other things that you've taken part in. So how important is it for you to kind of help carry on that legacy now as an advocate and being out on the front line as really an ambassador? You have the Starzl name, and your testimonial is so powerful. How has that helped you, or how important has that become for you to be out there?
That takes me back. It's very important for me to advocate and to be an ambassador for organ donation and education. When I see the patients, the recipients, as what more can I mean, I'm just so thrilled and joyful and happy that these people have a second chance at life, that there are so many others out there that are waiting for an organ and may not get that opportunity only because there's a lack of organs. And a lot of I'm finding out more and more that people just simply don't know. They don't know about it, Craig. After all this, you hear it on television, but they really don't grasp it. Transplantation, okay, they got a liver, they got an organ, but what it does for the individual and the family is just too big, too precious to not be willing to do what I'm doing. I do it graciously. I do it because Tom worked tirelessly to save lives. And if what I do, which is education and telling people about organ donation, is only a sliver of giving back and helping helping with the program, helping people save lives. So I'm honored to be able to be an ambassador. I take it with I take pride in what I do when I'm out there, and I just hope that we can continue to educate people about organ donation.
Well, I can say that as a recipient myself, and Derek will agree that as individuals who are out there advocating as well, we're so very lucky and happy to have you as a partner in this quest. You've been at it for years, and you're just such a powerful partner in it. If anybody watching is interested in learning more about some of the early days and really seeing the tremendous impact that Dr. Starzl had, there was a documentary made a couple years ago called Burden of Genius, and I've seen it, and it really is incredible. And if you have questions about organ donation, or if you want to really understand the impact that it has, check out that documentary, watch it, and just understand how important of an issue this really is. And as always, we encourage everybody to sign up to be organ donors. So if you'd like to sign up, visit our OPO's website. It's www.core.org, and find out more about organ donation, or please reach out to us with Second Chance, and we're happy to have that conversation with you as well. So Joy, I always tell people that I've never met anybody whose name is more fitting for their personality. It's always so great to have a conversation with you, and hopefully in the near future, we can get together in real life, and we can get one of those famous Joy Starzl hugs off you.
Oh, I can start counting. I'll start now.
I'll start a new count.
Virtual hugs. Virtual
right.
hugs.
Joy, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it so much.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. God bless you.